I had a series called Twilight Struggle, Getting Better. And it was a series where I went through some footage of my games and with the help of a guy in my comments section, I talked about mistakes I made. And it was meant to help people get better. And then I came to the conclusion that that's stupid and not going to help anybody, so I'm abandoning that series. But I'll admit to its existence, though, and I will link them in the description below, but I won't have them on my main channel. I'll admit to their existence, even though I don't want to. So hopefully, this will help someone. After editing this video, I determined that I needed to speed up these recordings. The Twilight Struggle subreddit exists, where you can keep up to date on shenanigans concerning the game, as well as ask how you can get better, and keep up to date with their Twilight Struggle Reddit Cup tournaments, as well as twilightstrategy.com, a website that has much analysis stuff. This card is pronounced Junta. Jordan and Saudi Arabia are adjacent to each other. If you look closely enough, the line is right there. It might be a little bit hard to notice because of the ocean. The US player can put influence into Turkey with, say, Marshall Plan. Then, from there, put influence into Syria. If you ever get locked out of the Middle East, whenever you're the United States player, one idea you might want to consider is to use, say, Marshall Plan to put influence in Turkey and try to get into Syria, and then from there, the rest of the Middle East. Cards such as, but not limited to, Warsaw Pact Reformed create lots of floating influence for the Soviet player to make it easier to use de-Stalinization. If you're the United States player, consider using cards such as Warsaw Pact Reformed before using de-Stalinization. If the Soviet player plays the CIA card, the United States player may elect to use that one-up to coup a battleground country. And if the DEFCON meter is at 2, the Soviet Union is the phasing player at the time that the DEFCON level would lower to 1. The Soviet player would lose the game. If you are the Soviet player and you decide that you need to get the CIA created card played and the DEFCON's at 2, then make sure that you have no influence in any countries in the Africa region, South America region, or Central America region. Because when the DEFCON level is at 2, the United States player can't coup Europe, Middle East, or Asia anyways. Me personally, after the first reshuffle, I stopped worrying about running into an opponent's event card again after say, spacing it out or discarding it to UN intervention. There's differing opinions on that, but before the first reshuffle, there is a good possibility that you might run into an opponent's event again if it's put into the discard pile without being played for the event. But regardless of your disposition on my personal strategy, cards such as Containment, when they are aligned with your opponents, may not be the best cards to space out, and creating the possibility of your opponents getting them. They only last until the end of the turn. Their effects only last until the end of the turn, so if you're able to, as the USSR, and you have Containment, consider playing that during the last AR of the turn, instead of spacing it out and creating the possibility of your opponents getting that card after the reshuffle. I reiterate, I personally stopped worrying about those possibilities after the first reshuffle, because then after that, the subsequent reshuffles will have so many more cards in them. Don't worry as much about regions if their scoring cards are already in the discard pile. Blockade is devastating to the USA player when it is used correctly. But Blockade can be used strategically by the USA player for his or her advantage. Consider holding the Blockade card in the event that there are not very many good cards that you want to discard to Blockade. That way, you may potentially be able to discard a card that would really help your opponent using Blockade. And finally, if you get anything from my video, let it be this. Be flexible. What I mean by that is make a plan as soon as you get your opening hand each turn, with the understanding, though, that you may need to amend that plan. You, for example, might get a hand and then determine this hand is awful. Oh no, I totally need to be on defense with this hand, trying to go on damage control. But your opponents may or may not also have an equally bad hand, and he may create an opportunity for you to strike in a certain region and do some damage. Or you may get an awesome hand and decide, yeah, I can totally strike and do lots of damage in a region and just go crazy. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to, but just have the understanding that your opponent may be able to totally throw a wrench in your original idea, to which you will need to be able to adapt.